Hey everybody, I'm Lewis. For today's video, I built an actual Deathbringer controller to play the Dark Knight class in Final Fantasy XIV. Right now, I'm on the quest to become a real-life Warrior of Light. That means I have to learn every class in the game by building simulation controls for each one. In our last video, we built an actual book controller to play Scholar and Summoner. But sadly, like most Texans, I can't read. However, on the bright side, we didn't die using the book, so I think I mastered that class. Luckily for me, the Dark Knight class is really simple as it just uses a big sword to do big sword things. The goal of this build is really simple. Swing the sword in a specific motion to activate that corresponding ability. Did you ever want to build immunity and piss off your downstairs neighbors at the same time? Just stab the ground as hard as you can with the sword controller and your mission's complete. Bonus points if you do it at 2 in the morning because your downstairs neighbors will love it. So the base of this build is actually a cosplay prop made by Luke Cave on Etsy. The build comes in pieces that you have to assemble yourself, but the process is really easy. Sadly, my SD card exploded, so I only have a couple of clips of me putting it together. And despite my bad sanding and paint job, I think the build turned out pretty okay. One thing I can show you is how I attach the joysticks and buttons to the sword. This is a kind of expensive cosplay prop and I didn't want to ruin it by drilling parts into it. To get around this, I 3D printed some customized clips that house all of my controller parts. So whenever you want to play with the controller, just attach the clips onto the hilt and you're ready to go. As mentioned earlier in the video, the focus of this build is straight up motion controls. For example, your basic rotation is relatively simple to do. To activate hard slash, you just do a hard slash with the sword. To do siphon strike, just swing the sword horizontally and you'll be good to go. Now to do Soul Eater, it's a little bit more tricky to pull off. The sword build itself is close to 6 feet long and my room isn't tall enough for me to do this Space Jam move, whatever this thing is. So for now, I just detect when the user swings the sword upwards to activate the ability. I did show this off a bit earlier, but in order to use Unleash, you just stab the ground with some force. Up next is Flood of Darkness, and to do that, just do a stab motion with the sword. And honestly, this is actually really fun to do. People who are subscribed to my channel might have noticed that this is really similar to my Buster Sword controller. This is literally the same code as the focus thrust function on that build. So a huge shout out to Past Lewis for sweating his ass off prototyping that big ass sword controller. And y'all, that controller was heavy. I can't believe I pulled that off. Overall, I think this build is pretty decent as there's nothing too weird about it. It was 4 in the morning when I finished this build, so I couldn't really ask my FC to do a test run in a dungeon. Final Fantasy XIV isn't really a hard game, so I can probably get away with being bad with this controller. I'm willing to bet if I did party finding with this controller, no one would even notice how bad I was playing. Wait a minute, I think I came up with a really bad idea.